I want to start actually by just saying a huge thank you for those of you that have been on this journey for the last 28 weeks. You guys rock. It's been so awesome to kind of share the last 6 months or 7 months with you now and kind of talk through like how I do nutrition, how we do exercise, and how to find some sense of balance, and still have focuses in other areas. So thank you for sticking with me, and I appreciate everybody that leaves comments and asks questions every single week. So let's dive in to my data. This week has been a slightly more quiet week, I guess, in terms of like big exciting things happening. I've had my head down working extremely hard. We've got lots of new products and things coming to you this week. In fact, Thursday is our second issue release of BiaBrain. So if you are not a subscribed member to that service, I would highly encourage you to go and check it out. We've got some really great topics this month. Proximity to failure and muscle growth is one of them. Deloads for muscle resensitization. That was a very interesting paper. Metabolic adaptation and weight loss maintenance. And then the last one is intermittent diet breaks for weight loss. So those are the 4 topics coming to you for this month's issue. And also just keep in mind, if you do subscribe, we're more than happy to send you out the previous month's issues as well if you want to get caught up on some of the other topics that we have available. That's very exciting, at least in my world. But in terms of my goals, I tell you what, I have been sitting here on the fence all week deciding, do I compete again? I have been looking at the shows, and I've got the pro show schedule pulled up right here. I may as well just show you guys. So I think in terms of getting myself qualified for the Olympia this year, I would be having to prep and be ready maybe for this Florida show here in Daytona, but it is extremely close. And again, knowing all the things that we've got going on, my part of me, like the instinctual part, perhaps the non-logical part, we'll call that the amygdala brain. That's like, yes, go, bells and whistles. And then there's the prefrontal cortex that's like, Holly, use your damn brain. No. So I think in terms of getting qualified this year, I would have to bend over backwards, as I've mentioned previously, to get that done. It's just such an almighty amount of work that goes into a competition prep. And to be frank, I don't want that to be the only thing that I'm thinking about. I love all the things that we've got going on in our company at the moment. I'm loving having a bit more kind of flexibility for right now. And I don't know that I want to crush myself to do that. But there is a show here just after the Olympia. So obviously Vegas is where the Olympia is being held this year. I'm highlighting it on the screen for you. I hope you can see that. October 11 and 12. So it's a little bit earlier than it used to be several years ago. And I think the part of the reason for that was people wanted to be able to travel around Thanksgiving and spend time with family and enjoy themselves. And the previous show dates were right around that time frame. And I think people were just frustrated in general. So it's kind of awesome that they've brought it forward into October. So that's the show I'd actually love to get out and just go and watch as a spectator. And I know that they also have an amateur show too. So I've got several clients that are interested in potentially competing at that. So that's exciting. But the Hurricane Pro Show, it's an open and masters show. I don't quite sneak into this category just yet, though another one that I will be doing potentially later in the year does offer a masters 35 plus. Isn't it crazy that 35 years of age is considered masters? Blows my mind. But anyway, 2024 Hurricane Pro Open is dated October 18 and 19. So if I quickly go over to my coaching sheets, I just plotted it in here just to see how many weeks away that would be. And let's say I bombed out, couldn't do it, or something came up and I just had to pivot and shift for a little bit. I believe it's the very next weekend. There is another show here, again, in Boca Raton, right around my, I guess they're a neighbor. So I was there actually on the weekend, which I'll talk to you about here in a second. So this one is called the 2024 Ultimate Grand Prix Masters Pro Series. So again, I giggle when I see Masters because I'm like, oh, I'm a Masters now. But 35 plus would be my age category. I turned 35 this year. So I just scrape in there, and it would be, the very next weekend. So again, thinking about, the sport of bodybuilding, for those of you that haven't had to like peak for a show before or have gotten down to that low level of body fat percentage, I wouldn't encourage it unless you are a competitive athlete. It actually really makes sense to do these shows back to back. It is really hard to kind of hold on to that level of conditioning, you really have to be just focused on that. You know, if you have any other interruptions, stress, travel, just life in general, it's like, it's really, really hard. So to see that there are 2 shows back to back, that's exciting. And these would then qualify me. Let's say I won. That qualifies me for next year. So then I can go and have an off season, grow those juicy glutes a little bit more, build a bit more shoulders, shrink my damn biceps and triceps. God knows how that's going to happen. I don't know. I'll keep praying about it. But that would be another really good scenario to be in. So here's me sitting on the fence. What do you guys think I should do? We've got BiaBrain going on. We've got our coaching team going on. I have the app going on. I have my coaching clients going on. We were wanting to start a podcast, potentially going on. There's holidays coming up. We've just got lots of things. I feel like I can do it. It's just, you know, the old expression, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm sitting on the fence here. I really enjoyed this prep. It just felt good to have, you know, something fun to look forwards to. Not that all those things I've just rattled off aren't fun, but it's a hobby. It's outside of like the lens of business. So I'm still sitting on it. I haven't made any decisions yet, but I definitely keep getting the itch. I'm like, oh God, like I just, I really want to do it. And I feel like I'm good at it. So I don't know. You guys tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me I'm crazy or tell me I think you should do this. But anyhow, I want to go over and like talk a little bit about my data for this past week, talk about my wild uptick in body weight, which I'm thrilled to share with you. I know so many people really struggle when they see their own body compositions changing, or maybe there isn't really a body composition change and it's more about water mass, glycogen, all of the things that kind of contribute to changes on the scale that may not necessarily be a true reflection of body composition. So let me start at the beginning. So last week when we did our check-in, I didn't really have a whole lot of weight data for you, and I promised you I would get some this week. I was just run off my feet, didn't really have much of an opportunity, particularly in the mornings, to get my weigh in. It was like by the time I remembered, I was like, oh my God, I've already eaten like 4 meals. This isn't going to work. It's not really accurate data then, because of course, as you go throughout the course of the day, you're introducing more variables and potential change. You know, just as an example, I might weigh myself. Let's say I forgot to do it on a Tuesday and I weighed myself in at, 12 p.m. noon. I could potentially, and in theory, weigh myself again on Thursday and Friday at 12 p.m. because it's the same time of the day. However, I might have done the same exercise in the morning. I might do a 60-minute walk. Sure, that's equivalent energy expenditure. But my foods might be starkly different. My hydration status might be starkly different too. One day it might be, I don't know, this is untrue of Florida, but let's assume for, I guess, all intensive purposes, one day it's a beautiful 67 degrees out and I go for a walk. I wish that would happen. It's so hot here right now. I think it's like 90 by 8 a.m. in the mornings, which for those of you that might be tuning in from Australia, that's like 30, I'm pretty sure, or above. Anyway, it's very warm. And let's say the following day, I go for that same walk, same duration, and it is 100 degrees. Just the changes in sweating alone might actually lead me to weigh in significantly less on the day where it's 100 degrees compared to the day where I go for the walk and it's the nice cool 67. And we're not going to see those numbers down here for a while. So, that would be one element of, or introducing an error, and not to mention the foods that I consume. So let's say, assume on the cool, nice winter morning, I have more of a hot breakfast that is, probably less fluidity. And then on the other day where I have, the 100-degree day, I opt for something that is maybe a fluid liquid breakfast. I don't want anything hot. I'm already, heat stricken from being out in the sun, and I opt for maybe a chilled, chocolate protein shake or something. Again, those two differences, getting on the scale, at the 12 noon time, would lead to some pretty meaningful differences on the scale. Food volume would be different. And then again, if you're using, say, like an at-home InBody or something that uses bioelectrical impedance, that too would register quite differently because of the constituents of the food that you're eating. So that is why it is more important to take your weight in the morning if possible, if you are somebody that's tracking for accountability purposes. We're not necessarily interested in like getting the lowest weight on the scale. Now, I know a lot of people are motivated by that, but that shouldn't be the motivating factor for getting on the scale. in the morning. It should be just trying to get a consistent, condition week after week after week. So morning weigh-ins, you've already introduced significantly fewer variables than if you were to weigh later in the day. So anyhow, I did get some weigh-ins this week, but you can see I went from 137 about a week ago, just over a week ago now. I had crept up to 138 on Tuesday, and then you can see 140.2 on Thursday, and then 143 on Saturday. So I guess it's quite a big adjustment. I mean, the weigh-in where I had on, I think it's Saturday, 143, that's now officially 10 pounds up from my show day, which wasn't that many weeks ago. I think we're probably talking about a month, so 4 weeks. However, I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. So first and foremost, you can see over here in red, I have a big old Y, and that is under the column menstrual cycle, period. So for me, I can always feel it in my bones as I'm about to get my cycle. So it probably started on Monday. When I'm out just for a nice gentle walk, you start to get the cramps and you can just feel a little bit more like distension in your tummy. Throughout the course of the week, it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And on Saturday, it was one of these days I went for a run. We'll go and have a look at my activity data here in a second. But once I finished the run, I remember just looking down at my stomach and just laughing. And I'm like, I was running with Sam and I'm like, hey babe, I think we're expecting. Like, it was ridiculous, like to the point where I could actually hold my stomach. It was so bad. I'm like, I'm about to get my period. I just know it. So, those changes make such a drastic difference on the scale. And I always tell my clients, anywhere in the measure of 1 to 3% of your body weight would be a normal weight increase in response to getting your cycle. And again, the more muscular you are, the bigger person you are in general. You can't really compare a 100-pound individual with a 150-pound individual. You're going to have absolute, very different numbers on the scale in terms of those fluctuations. So even for me, I know my week-to-week fluctuations are significantly different to what they used to be, 15 years ago. I was such a smaller person. I think I used to weigh about, 56 kilograms, on a good day. And now, my weekly average weight is significantly higher. It's probably closer to 64. I think I'd have to do the conversion right now. But, now because of that, because I'm more muscular, my weight fluctuation is therefore greater. As a percentage of my total body weight, 1% at 150 is going to be different to 1% for somebody at 100. So I kind of, anticipated that. Doesn't mean that it feels any better. And I remember looking at it and I'm going, oh God, and more importantly, I just felt like crappers this week. I'm sure you guys can relate to this. And I had to keep talking myself off the cliff multiple times. I'm like, you're going to be fine. It's going to settle down. It's going to dissipate here soon. So one of the things that I would probably like to do in these situations, because it does leave me feeling very uncomfortable when I'm trying to train, and I like to train hard. I'm sure many of you guys do as well. I feel like I was fluidy, carrying and retaining a lot of water. And because my carbohydrate have also gone up pretty significantly since my end of competition, it just sits around and it doesn't feel good. I went and trained at a new gym on Thursday night with Sam. It was, I think, called Amped. It was another place here in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, it was this session, must be here, this one. And I remember doing the leg extension and we did, I guess, some failure sets. It was AMRAPs. And I just got off the machine. I'm like, I haven't felt this kind of a pump, like a muscle pump, in a very long time. And again, I have been depleted, not really ever getting to the point where my muscle glycogen stores are full. They're operating on empty, low. So, but the last couple of training sessions, I'm like, oh my God, this just feels so horrible and difficult because there's just nowhere for anything to move. I even said to him, it feels like, because there's so much intramuscular pressure, when you're trying to clear out some of those metabolites after a failure set, I'm like, I don't think they're leaving very quickly either. They're just staying trapped inside because there's just so much swelling going on at the moment. I think, this week, if I had to say one thing, my biggest qualm was I just did not feel very good at all. I wasn't making the best food choices. I've been doing a lot of exploration with our new recipe book. And again, because I had been deprived for so many months, now kind of knowing and having no ceiling, you can eat as much as you like until you feel satisfied. with your health in mind. I've definitely been allowing myself to pick and, have extra, a little handful of white chocolate chips if I'm baking with something, or if I want a snack, instead of putting together something that's, really low calorie, I'm like, you know what? Just have the thing that you want to have and enjoy it. And I have been, but it is a big transition and I am feeling it everywhere. Feeling it in my arms, feeling it in my quads, my hamstrings. Everything is like a little balloon. So I think this week I need to be a bit more intentional, I think, with making some more conscious decisions around my macronutrient split, where I'm not constantly having, such a high percentage of my calories from carbohydrates. It doesn't feel good. So, and I'm sure maybe you guys can relate to that as well. So you can see here, if I go and have a look at my overall compliance for the week, it says that I was compliant to my target, which is thrilling. However, I've highlighted over here in orange 3 days that are not accurate. I know that I didn't get an opportunity to track everything, and I also did not get an opportunity to put everything on the scale. Again, I'm very mindfully eating, loosely tracking, so that I can kind of report some data back to you guys. So it's saying here on Wednesday I ate 1562, then 1387 on Thursday, and then 1341 on Friday. That would probably be, I don't know, a good 300 calories, I think, less than what I actually consumed. I put in most of my main meals. I went and thought back to everything that I had, but I know that there were other things that I've missed, at least the snacks. So just for a second, if I remove this data, so I'm just going to hit delete, let's go and put in some hypotheticals. So I would probably assume I was up closer to 220. Again, I'm just going to pick an arbitrary number because I know it was much higher than what I had. And then I also think over here, this is probably closer to 50 and this is probably closer to 50. So, now that takes me over by about 6% from what I had been aiming for. And it brings my calorie intake up a bit. But moreover, you can see here there's a bit of a shift in my carbohydrates. So previously, if we go back several weeks, I'd been down at 115, 120 for most of my prep. Now being back up 100 grams of carbohydrate, it's just going to take me a bit of time to get used to, and it's okay. I don't want to avoid, a fuel that I know has been so good for my energy levels, because I tell you now, I've felt pretty good in terms of my power and my strength in the gym. I'm just getting used to that full feeling, which is what I know is just going to take a little bit of time to adapt. So I think I was over my targets a little bit this week, and I'm sure some of the weight increase that we are seeing here is probably also a factor of just adding on a bit of body fat, and that's okay. I don't want to stay down at 133 pounds. It was a very miserable existence there for a few weeks, and obviously there are many positives, which I talked about last week in my check-in, that this is going to be so much better for it. I mean, I can already feel it, just my energy levels and motivation to go and train at the end of the day, even after a full day of work. I'm looking forwards to it, whereas previously it was okay, a couple big deep breaths. You got this, girl. So I am generally positive about the transition. So we'll put those numbers back to what they originally were tracked as. My fiber intake this week was pretty similar to the previous week. So you can see here, last week's weekly average was 17 grams. This week's weekly average was 21 grams. One of the other things I want to point out here in the sodium column is that my sodium that was reported was 2100. Last week's reported sodium was 1607 milligrams. I can tell you now, based on the foods that I was prepping for our new recipe 2024 guide, it was extremely salty. I was working with pulled pork quite a bit, or pork loin, with lots of different seasonings this week. We were doing many different pork-based recipes. So I think we have nachos, we had some pulled pork sandwiches. My goodness, what else was there? There were a handful of things, but I know just based on what I was adding to them, we had a nice sweet smoky barbecue sauce in one of those recipes, which in and of itself probably had 500 milligrams of sodium. That was also contributing to the scale weight increase. I know typically the foods that I eat aren't quite that high in sodium. Again, I just want to point out that's not necessarily a bad thing unless you are not a non-salt sensitive individual, which affects a very small percentage of the population. Having a higher sodium intake is not inherently a bad thing. We have this amazing capacity to equilibrate, and our body will then therefore retain a little bit more water to kind of balance out that solute load. So I'm not somebody that's usually concerned with sodium, or at least not the absolute value for me, but it definitely it showed up in my fingers when I was running. So I know after we finished one of our runs, I said to Sam, can you feel your fingers? Because I can't. I was trying to wiggle them around and I had my ring on, and there was no chance I was getting that off after my run. All the blood had pooled all the way into my fingers. So again, another reason for me just to be mindful and observant of my food choices. Again, thinking about how I would like to feel when I show up and exercise, or just how I move around on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so coming over to look at my activity this week. So I'm actually happy to see that I got all my training done. I mentioned last week that I was going to have a week home, and that is exactly what I did. I went to the movies on Friday night and saw Twister. I don't know whether any of you guys are interested in natural disaster movies, but I know for me, if I'm to think about like the movies that I like the most, or like the genre, it would be sci-fi and natural disaster. And Twister was probably my favorite movie growing up as a kid. I know we had it on DVD. I probably had it on video if it existed back then. And I had watched it so many times. And I remember months ago seeing it on either Netflix as an ad or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, Twister #2 is coming out. It was called Twisters. So we went and saw that on Friday, and I have not been to the movies in at least a year. It's not really something that I do a lot of. I will try to watch TV or a Netflix, show with Sam, but I usually get very bored and distracted by other things, or I just want to be doing something else. I think my brain has a hard time switching off. So we went and saw it. You know what? I'd only give it a 6.3 out of 10. I was really ready for this, but I think the original characters in Twister were just so good. It's really hard to live up to their performance, I think, in that show. Or that movie. But had a good time. We went and caught up with, I guess, a friend of Sam's who lives in Boca Raton. We went to a steakhouse. I ordered bread, had a couple of glasses of wine, also ordered a glass of wine in the movies, which was nice, and definitely relaxed. I'm surprised I kept my eyes open, to be frank. Normally I fall asleep in the movie theater. So that's definitely not a place I want to go on a date. I've always joked and said to Sam, like, if you want me to pass out, like, take me to the movies, because I will just fall asleep pretty much instantly, because I don't think I ever like really rest that often. So when I do, I'm like out like a light. But anyway, that was very fun. And then on Saturday, you can see here, let me pull over my mouse. Saturday. We got some training in, went for a nice big walk, got a lot of steps in on this day. I can't recall why my steps were so high. We might have gone and, I don't know, done a few things around the house or gotten the house ready and prepped for more showings. It's still on the market. Oh my God, I wish this thing would just freaking sell. And then on Sunday, I also had a run. So I have been loving the runs. Now, it was substantially more difficult than the runs I was doing back here. So you may recall me talking about doing a 3-mile time trial and blitzed it. My 1 mile pace was awesome. I was so shocked and so proud of myself. But the quick, rapid transition of weight, again, some of this is body fat, some of it, probably a greater percentage, to be honest, is fluid and just glycogen. That sudden increase on the scale, it definitely made these runs more difficult. Now, my cardiovascular fitness is fine. It has not changed. I've still been doing a good amount of cardio, but just moving your body and the pounding of your feet on the pavement definitely made it a lot more difficult. And again, motivation for me to consider more carefully and be more mindful of how I want to fuel my body, if I want to be able to feel light on my feet and energized when I'm, doing these fast 2-mile runs. So they still have been good. I have still kept up those pretty consistently. You can see here, every week it seems to clock me in around 200 or so calories for about a 16 or 17 minute run. I think probably over the weekend, I'd love to do another 3 mile. But I hope that by then my weight has subsided a little bit from my menstrual cycle, because I know I will feel a lot better if I can run without all of that extra water weight. It was just, I just remember the one that I did on, I must have been Friday. Let me pull it up again. Yeah, Friday. Hang on. Scroll. This one here. Oh, like that was the day that I was about to get my period. And I remember saying to Sam as we were running, I'm like, yep, I'm definitely about to get it. This is just ridiculous. And he was like, do you need to stop? And I'm like, no, the show must go on. So got the run done and enjoyed it. it was a beautiful morning. So we had fun. Lots of walking going on. I did track everything. So this week, my weekly energy expenditure was up to 4,700. Geez, can you imagine? 4,700 calories for the week. And again, this is combined resistance training, the runs, and then all the walks. So I do track my walk. I can record that as an actual bout of exercise, and I just keep an eye on what my energy expenditure is to see what it might be approximately. And again, we know that these are not absolutes. They're likely quite inaccurate, but at least consistently inaccurate. I'm using the same device, so I can make those comparisons relative to the previous weeks. So I was more active this week. I did feel great in terms of my exercise output, and I was a happier person because of it, I can tell you now. Although I did get started very late in the week. You can see here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I didn't get any lifting in. They were just big days at work. I'm surprised I even got my walks in, to be honest, but I was cranky by Thursday. I remember when Sam got here, I was like, would you like to train this evening? I waited for him to finish. He had his last day of school with his students. They had their exams, and he was like, yeah, I'll drive down. So I'm like, you know what? I normally train in the mornings, but I'm going to wait for you for this session so that we could go and have a good workout together. Not how I would like to structure my week. And again, 3 days of not really doing a whole lot of movement combined with higher calories were just not a good feeling for me. So I've already kind of made some corrections this week to make sure that I can get that in. And again, if I want to prep again, I will need to reprioritize how things are kind of going to fit into my schedule so that I can optimize that to the best of my ability. So my weekly average steps came in at 11,000. So again, a bit of a step up from the previous week. Not quite as high as the week prior, but very good nonetheless. And there was also a day here where I'm pretty sure my watch died. I think it was this one. I didn't get to track anything. And also over here in the spin class, by the end of the day, this is done at like, let's say 11 o'clock at night, I found a new instructor. I'm going to put her details on the screen. I don't know a whole lot about who she is, but anyway, I briefly did one of her classes, and it was the most intense class I have ever partaken in. Not necessarily because of the difficulty of bike riding, but it was choreographed. So I'd hate to see a replay of somebody filming me on my patio on my bike trying to do the choreography. I'm like spazzing out, laughing to myself at 11 o'clock, playing her spin track. So I endeavored to get better at that. I used to be a dancer, so you'd think that I'd have the coordination, but they are moving their legs like to the beat. So some of these songs are like da 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 da, so they go really quick. And then there are like all of these like codes that she was calling out, and everybody in the class just happened to know what they were. I'm like, can we get an explanation, please? Beginner here. So I was just trying to like watch from I think I had my phone like this sitting on the front of the Peloton bike, and I'm trying to like see what they're doing, and I'm like elbowing it and fist pumping it and then waving my arms around here. I'm like, yeah, this is not happening. So I will do that again and see if I can get better, and I'll probably put my bike in front of my big TV screen so that I can actually see what they are doing. But anyhow, what I was going to say was this number here, the 300 calories for that session, is just an estimate. My watch is already dead at this point. I just tracked it for time. And I assume based on the lack of coordination and intensity of that bike ride, because I was really focused on trying to just do what they did. It wasn't super aggressive, but that was really fun. So I guess where do we go from here? Look, I don't know that I need to make any crazy adjustments, at least to my tracked macros. I'm going to scroll down here to week 20. Oh my God, is it really week 30? No. Anyway, it is actually week 30. I think I've been putting the numbers in my folder and labeling it something different. But anyway, for this week, I think my targets are probably going to be somewhere around this mark. If I end up going a little bit over 100 or so calories more, it's not the end of the world, but I want to feel a little bit better in my skin. So I think I do need to kind of switch around my ratio, try to bring my protein up a little bit. And again, if we look at my master data values for last week, there are multiple days here where I'm not meeting my target: 70, 91, 83, 92, 81. And then there's this wild card down here at 173. So, in terms of my protein compliance, that is not optimal. And again, I have been eating a greater percentage of my calories from carbohydrates. So I think it's important to point that out, even though it says 99% compliance over here. If we're looking at an average, that would be true. But that's the one macronutrient you don't want to look at averages for. You want to try and hit those numbers pretty consistently every day. So, if I'm really serious about my muscle building goals and wanting to grow my glutes, I will need to start to focus on this. I have had a good amount of time just being free and flexible. I will shift my focus a little bit back towards favoring protein. And I think with the foods that I'm prepping this week for our recipe guide, should not be an issue. So I don't think I need to make major adjustments to my calories. I think right now, somewhere between 17 and 2000 is a great place for me to be. As I said, I'm not super active. I'm very sedentary unless I plan a lot of movement. And I do want to feel a little bit better in my skin, literally. So hopefully I can make some course corrections this week. Or if I choose not to, or if it's just not realistic, I don't beat myself up about it. I am conscious of my decisions, and it doesn't always pan out exactly the way that I want, but I do know that if I keep eating this way, I'm going to continue to feel pretty meh, at least for the short foreseeable future. Eventually, I'll probably adapt to the new targets and the new higher calories. But right now, like I said, I definitely feel a bit swollen, and training has felt unnecessarily unpleasant because of that. So I think I'll keep going here. I'm going to keep my runs probably up to 60 minutes because I'll do 320s or 230s. Again, depending this weekend on how the weather is, what time I get out of bed. It's been really hot. So if I end up waking up a little bit later, doing a run here in Florida, after 9 a.m. in the morning, it's tough. I mean, you'd have to be prepared with a Camelback or something with water. I don't have one of those because I haven't run for such a long time. And I don't really like the idea of trying to run with a drink bottle in my hand. I don't know if you guys do that, but it doesn't sound very comfortable. So I'm going to keep everything pretty much the same here. I'll continue to try and track my data as best as I can to keep kind of talking you through. But I mean, for me, that I'm loosely doing this, and I need to make some decisions pretty soon if I want to do this show here in a few weeks' time. So I'd probably have to make the decision over the next week or two, because then I'd have to dive back into some consistent calorie targets. So before we wrap up, let's go and take a look at the questions on YouTube. These questions I'm actually pulling from the new Advanced Glute and Shoulders program that was launched last week. It is a 55-minute training video with lots of good information. So if you haven't watched that one already, go and check it out. But this person asks, I have a question regarding the sets. It says 1 of 9 of the training volume is enough to maintain a muscle. If you want to lose a bit of biceps, why are you still doing 6 sets? Wouldn't that still be enough to keep the size? And what I see in all the bikini athletes, if a judge says you don't want or need any more glutes or shoulders, why are you still training 30 to 40 sets per week, even if they don't progress and just kind of do more conditioning? I just want to understand the reasoning behind it, if less would keep the muscle as well. So I think to this person, not quite sure where you're getting these numbers from. Maybe you can let me know in next week's video. But when I talk about maintenance of a muscle, I think probably somewhere, again, for me as a steady state resistance trained athlete who's been lifting for a long time, I can probably maintain my muscle on somewhere in the realm of, 9 to 12 sets per week. So the fact that I'm still doing, 6 sets of chest and 6 sets of back is me being very, very hopeful that it's such a low volume that it's not going to contribute more and that I might start to atrophy. I'm also doing some more conditioning work. So I'm hoping that there will be some fuel redistribution towards the running that I'm doing, and that will actually impede negatively, or I'm hopeful that it will negatively impact my capacity to grow if I do chest and back on those days. So I could very well take them all out. I probably should, but there's also an inherent element of me still wanting to enjoy training. So it might be at my own detriment of keeping 6 sets on my back and chest, but I have eliminated and I have not done biceps and triceps for a long time. So I think in your question here, you said if you wanted to lose biceps, why are you still doing 6 sets? I am not. I'm not doing any biceps and triceps, and I haven't had those for quite a few weeks now, at least since my competition finished. In the 6-week training block leading up to my show at Nationals, which I won, I was doing 1 exercise per week or maybe 2 exercises per week, 6 sets in total on my triceps, but there was no bicep work. I haven't done bicep work for years. I would consider there's some indirect work through some of the pressing movements. But again, that's why I'm bringing all that down again to basically the minimum amount of volume possible. So we will see. I also need time for this to play out too. If I make an adjustment to my training program, right now, and we review my muscle mass in 6 weeks, I don't know that that's really a meaningful amount of time to see an appreciable drop off in muscle either. My understanding is that the speed at which muscle grows is probably about the speed that it is also lost. So again, if I'm wanting to be realistic about how long it's going to take for me to see those changes, I probably need a little bit of time as well for that atrophy to take place. And like I said, I'm also adding in more cardio, and I'm hopeful that there'll be some nutrient redistribution, and that might take away from, I guess, the recovery that would otherwise facilitate muscle growth. So I hope that that makes sense. Again, I think if I was being really, really serious, I would stop all chest pressing and I would stop all pulling movements or back and chest, because that would indirectly target my triceps and biceps as a tertiary muscle group. And I'd also, I'm still giving myself an opportunity to potentially hang on to what I've got in my chest and back. But, when I do those sets, I'm not pushing to failure. I'm keeping it at a pretty low intensity. I mean, just last night, for instance, I did one of my chest and back exercises for the week. So I did 3 sets, and I'll only do 3 more, for the rest of the week, taking it to 6. The RPE was like 5 or 6. Like, I'm not even going to failure. And again, we know proximity to failure is one of the most important considerations for signaling growth. So I'm in there just doing it for fun because I love training those muscle groups. And I'm like, oh, well, if I don't do that, I'm going to be pretty miserable. So we will have to see, but I really appreciate your attention to detail in this. If you're kind of stepping in without all of the context, I can see why you'd be like, why are you still doing some if you wanted to lose? So thank you so much for that question. The next person here asks, loving this, Holly, can you talk to us about your therapy sessions too? We would love to see how your therapist would help you with your shoulder, etc. So in this particular video, for anybody that hasn't watched it, I was talking about some of the shoulder discomfort and pain that I was getting towards the final few weeks of my prep for Nationals. It was niggling already around the Pittsburgh Pro AM show, and then I had to make some modifications to which exercises I was choosing and to the loads, just to get it through, without causing an injury. It was starting to get quite painful. So I am not, I'm not certain when I will get an opportunity to go in to speak with or meet with my physical therapist. I know Coach Shannon, actually, Dr. Russell from our team, is planning on a little trip to come down, I believe, to Fort Lauderdale here in the next week or so. So she may even be open to doing a video with me to take a look at that. But right now, lifting the loads I've been choosing, it's felt a lot better. And I honestly have to take a guess at this, because I had been trying to grow my shoulders, which was one of the areas that I still think is incredibly important for a bikini competitor. Again, I was doing like 27 sets per week. So I think, there's only so many exercises that you can do to target those muscle groups. And I think it was just a lot of repetition and doing the same movements over and over probably contributed just to some general wear and tear. And again, I was in an under-recovered state. I wasn't able to, repair as well as I would if I was eating in a surplus and I had all of the micronutrients and plenty of energy availability, spared for that recovery purpose. So it's feeling good now. I'm pressing again, though my weight hasn't kind of returned to what I was or I know I can do, but I'm optimistic. It's been good at least the last 2 weeks. So yeah, I will definitely, if I bring Shannon in, we can potentially do a quick video on that, and that can be part of one of my next training videos. The last person here doesn't have a question, just thank you. I've been following you along for many years, watching your WBFF journey. You have love your content, learning so much about your workouts. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So I think that's all from me this week, guys. I hope that your training is going really well. If you've got any questions that you would like to learn more about in regards to your own goals, by all means, please feel free to ask questions. This is really an opportunity to do that. Again, I talked at the beginning of the video about our BiaBrain research review. That is an awesome product that I think you guys are absolutely going to love. It is only $14.99 per month, and you can cancel at any time. It's just a monthly reoccurring subscription. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, please reach out to me and our team here at Team BiaBody. We have a wealth of information across several different coaches, each with their own area of expertise. We are ready and willing to work with you. And I know that this video is going to be going out during the month of July. So I know that I am going to be doing a crazy sale on one-on-one coaching, like stupid. When I saw what my team had suggested for the pricing, I was like, okay, that's really aggressive. So if you aren't subscribed to our newsletter with BiaBody and you're interested in coaching and getting a ridiculous price, I feel like I'm giving away my soul. But that's available for the final few weeks of this month, July. So if you go and subscribe to our newsletter on the BiaBody page, if you go to the home page, scroll to the bottom, you'll see a place where you can pop in your email and your name. By Friday or Saturday, you will then have an opportunity to get the email that will come out to you guys where I will be offering a stupid crazy price for one-on-one coaching, and I believe it's for 10 weeks. So I know for so many people, cost is a big consideration, and my fees are, I think, fairly priced, but we're doing Christmas in July. So go and check that out. And while you're there, take a look at all of our free resources. We've got training programs, written articles, food recipes. I guess the coaches also have several different articles that they've talked about as well. And yeah, I guess that's probably about all from me this week. So I guess until next week's check-in, maybe don't forget to tell me, am I going to compete? I need some input here. What do you guys think? Anyhow, I'll see you next week. Have a good one.